I will now convene our Committee on Collective Bargaining. We have 19 speakers to begin with our committee work. Each speaker will have 1 minute. As I call your name, please address the microphone, and as the red light goes on, please conclude your comments. Chris Sprafira, Ron Williams, Frank Garcia, Doug Frame, Dennis Sotomayor, Reggie Castro. Anyone feel free to come up in any order.
Good morning, Chancellor White, Board of Trustees, campus presidents. My name is Reggie Castro. I'm from Cal State Northridge, 34 years of committed and loyal service. We appreciate the diligence and the efforts in the tentative agreement that we have come to. We at Cal State Northridge appreciate the fair contract, the fair raises that we have acquired. We hope to continue to build our relationship with our CSU campuses, CSU presidents, our directors. I can honestly tell you now that we have 2 directors, Mr. Jason Wong, Mr. Douglas Wells of the Physical Plant Management Department, who are working with us in the efforts of fixing the problem with the jock contractors, our deferred maintenance program. We're moving slowly, but progressively, something that we hadn't done in a couple of years now. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you very much. Hector Fernandez with Teamsters. I've worked for the CSU for over 12 years now, and want to thank you, presidents, trustees, all for working with us to get this contract done. Took a while, but I think we were able to come to some great conclusions that gave us some fair raises, got some money into our employees' pockets that was much needed over the time span. And I just want to address a few of the things that were kind of added on to there. We had some extra language changed on some parts that could hopefully address some of our equity issues, and then also looking at some joint lobbying efforts. And a few things that I think everyone's aware of that I just want to kind of point out again. We're all aware of the budget deficits. Sorry, I'll be pulling time too. We don't have a few of the other speakers. From 2008 till present, we've lost over $1 billion in funding in the CSU from Sacramento, and we have not seen that money come back. Deferred maintenance has reached an all-time high of $2.6 billion. In 2008, it was $427 million. In that same time span between 2008 and 2014, CSU made numerous requests to the state and was denied for any funding for deferred maintenance. As we see during that time span, it nearly tripled, quadrupled. So that really didn't help our situation with our campuses. Since 2014, we have not had any permanent funding. It's pretty much been anywhere between about 10 to 50 million. In 2014, they also allowed us to go ahead and switch over to the bonds, which is great to help with our deferred maintenance, but it also puts more liability on the CSU to pay those back. So again, the state is continuing to push the liabilities back on the CSU. Again, over that same time span, we've had a 22% increase in square footage, 15% increase in MPPs, a 10% increase in student enrollment, and yet the maintenance guys are still remaining at a 2% or less, increase. So we're hoping with the joint lobbying effort that we were able to come to agreements with, that between everybody in the room and ourselves, we can go to Sacramento and hopefully get them to fix some of these issues with the deferred maintenance and get them to actually fund a permanent funding source for the CSU to address these issues. So I want to thank everybody again, and I appreciate the efforts in getting this contract taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hector. So just to be clear, Chris Rafira, Ron Williams, Frank Garcia, Doug Frame, Dennis Sotomayor, are they speaking? And then Jason Rabinowitz? Okay, thank you very much. Next group of speakers, Rocky Sanchez, Rich McGee, Neil Jacklin, Mike Chavez, Carolyn Duquette. In any order.
Rocky Sanchez, VP for Representation CSUEU. I hail from Cal Poly Pomona. Good morning, Chancellor White, trustees, presidents, and brothers and sisters. Just as an FYI, your campuses are telling our employees that there's going to be a hiring freeze, that they needed to look forward to an extra heavy-duty workload. This is something that has been coming up that we've had to deal with time after time in regards to our workload. Expectations are that we're to put in more than 8 hours worth of work in order to meet expectations. And yet we cannot do that, and yet we're being told that we have to do that. And it is reflected in our performance evaluations if we can't. So I need to warn you all that a hiring freeze is not going to get the work done. We will not be able to service our students the way they should be serviced, especially if you're going to be raising tuition. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rich McGee, Chair, Bargaining Unit 9. We have a growing problem within the represented employees of CSUU with confidential class employees performing staff work. There are now 700 or 800 of these people statewide. There used to be only a few dozen. Per the classification qualification standards for confidential class employees, they're to do bargaining unit work on behalf of their employer and accept and process grievance work. They are not to do staff work. That work is ours and we want it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. Carolyn Duquette, 23 years here at the Chancellor's Office. I'm the Unit 7 Chair. In January, I stood before you to call to your attention issues regarding bargaining Unit 7 employees who were working out of class. During the last 3 bargaining cycles, CSU management has promised to meet with us, and they did not. We have a campus who aggressively decided to utilize our work to be performed by MPPs, as they indirectly and unilaterally chose to make modifications and deletions to our classifications and feel that they are better suited to perform our work. This is not acceptable and is, and is in violation of our CBA contract. I have information in my hand to prove that job announcements were created for MPPs of work belonging to us. Again, Chancellor White, this is not acceptable that this campus decided to take on this mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Chancellor White, trustees, campus presidents, and guests. My name is Neil Jacklin. I am president for CSUEU, and I can say with confidence that CSU employees work for the CSU because they believe in the institution and wanting to help student success. Student success depends upon quality education and service. An investment in frontline staff is an investment in their future. This year's audit clearly questions how prioritizing hiring more managers and paying them higher salaries helps to serve our students. CSU's lack of accountability and transparency in this has resulted in bloated management and does not prioritize students' services or staff development. This has not served the best interests of the students or frontline staff who provide vital services and keep our campuses safe. Moving forward, we need a conversation and decisions with accountability and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael Chavez, Chair of Unit 5, 18-year employee at CSU Stanislaus. I'd like to talk a little bit about the outsourcing of our Unit 5 work at a number of campuses. We've been on Monterey Bay, Dominguez Hills, Fresno, Maritime Academy, a number of campuses. But here we're coming to the end of a 5-year agreement PERB agreement with CSU San Marcos. I'm an optimist that I think we can go ahead and hopefully we can get to the required amount, but I'm also a realist. Right now, to date, there's a little over half of where it's required to come to that agreement, but yet we have some more talks, some more work to happen. So hopefully we can get to that agreement and reach the full potential of our staff there for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final group of speakers, Tessie Reese, Sandeep Roy, Ben Deutsch, and Ian Scott. In any order, please.
Good morning, Tessie Reese, Unit 2 Chair from San Diego State. I wanted to just kind of, since we have 1 minute today to speak, is to reiterate again the importance of what our health centers do for our students, that we are understaffed. We do not have enough clinicians to provide the services that are desperately needed by our students. And that goes everything from our mental health to just regular chronic illnesses. We have campuses, health centers, who are now coming up with policies called no chronic illness visits. So someone who has, let's say, blood pressure problems, they don't want to see them because it takes too much effort, I guess, to see these students. We have to do a better job about what we require our health centers to do. Unit 2 is willing to sit down and be part of the solution. We have nurse practitioner and physician assistants who are well experienced and ready and willing to give some desperate input regarding what our health centers should be doing, but are ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. I don't see anyone coming up. Sandeep Roy, Ben Deutsch, and Ian Scott. Are they in the room? Okay. That will conclude public comment. We have one consent item, which is the approval of the minutes. Do any committee members have any objections to adopting the minutes as written? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved. We now have 2 action items. Item 2 is an action item. It's the ratification of the extension of the collective bargaining agreement with Bargaining Unit 6, Teamsters 2010. And item 3 is an action item, the adoption of initial proposals for a successor collective bargaining agreement with Bargaining Unit 11, the International Union, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, UAW. These 2 items will be presented by Melissa Bard, our Vice Chancellor of Human Resources. Vice Chancellor Bard.
Thank you, Chair Day. We have 2 action items before you today. Ratification of the tentative agreement with Bargaining Unit Teamsters 2010 and the adoption of initial proposals for Bargaining Unit 11, the United Auto Workers. Let me start with the first action for ratification, which is with Teamsters. The tentative agreement has already been ratified by the membership of the union. With respect to this agreement, I would like to echo the comments of our speakers and acknowledge all the hard work of the members involved in reaching these tentative agreements. There's a lot that happens between this committee formally adopting initial proposals and a tentative agreement coming back for ratification. Action item 2 is for the ratification of the extension of the collective bargaining agreement with Bargaining Unit 6, Teamsters 2010, the union that represents approximately 1,100 skilled trade workers throughout our system. The agreement with Teamsters was due to expire in June of 2019. However, in the course of these negotiations, the parties agreed to add an additional year to the agreement, which means this agreement will run through June 30th of 2020. For this unit, there will be a 3.11% general salary increase for this fiscal year, retroactive to July 1st, and further general salary increases of 3% on July 1st of 2018 and 3.75% on July 1st of 2019. With regards to benefits, Teamsters agreed to increase the minimum years of service credit necessary to receive full medical and dental benefits upon retirement at age 52 from the current 5 years to a minimum of 10 years for new members to the union, effective July 1st of 2018. This change requires legislation change, and the union has agreed in this tentative agreement to support such a legislative change. Implementing this significant change will bring this unit into parity with CFA represented faculty, other staff units that ratified at the last board meeting, and non-represented employees, including MPPs and executives. Action item 3 before you is the adoption of initial proposals with bargaining unit 11, the United Automobile Workers. This union represents our teaching associates, graduate assistants, and instructional student assistants system-wide. The current agreement runs until September 30th of 2018, and we look forward to sitting down with our student employees and their representatives over the coming months. Chair Day, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Bard. Board members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to taking action. Item 2 is the ratification of the extension of the collective bargaining agreement with Bargaining Unit 6, Teamsters 2010. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion?
Please move.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Quick question for Mr. Rollier.
Trustee Taylor.
Mr. Rollier, as you know, we're facing a deficit next year. And have yet to determine how we're going to address that. Obviously, some tough conversations yet to come. Want to be assured that the very, what I think are fair increases for our hardworking staff will not add to that deficit. Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go. The proposals that are put here will not add to any deficit with the university.
Above and beyond that which we've already projected.
Above and beyond what we've already projected, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Taylor. Any further questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is approved. Moving on to item 3, the adoption of initial proposals for successor collective bargaining agreement with Bargaining Unit 11, the International Union, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, UAW, is an action item before the Committee on Collective Bargaining. Again, only committee members may vote. Any questions, or do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved as well. That concludes the business of the Committee on Collective Bargaining. At this time, Trustee Fagan, will you please convene the Committee on Audit?
Thank you, Vice Chair.